both of these are like men who are like having sex with women, but at the same time, like there's this comfortability with like male intimacy between them.
You can, I can also tell that you did not catch Da Vinci Code Fever when that book was out because that character played by Paul Bettany in the movie, who's God,
Who's the deadly
who's an
monk?
who's an albino who's self-flagellates
Yeah.
periodically. Yeah, his name was Silas.
Silas? No,
Yeah, I
Silas.
definitely, I definitely avoided the Da Vinci Code. It was one of those things where like people online would be like, "This is so bad. Why is this so popular?" And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna let you all deal with this. I'm not gonna deal with this.
In retrospect, it was less corrosive to our culture than Harry Potter.
Ooh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What part of the like robbery posse would you be? Are you the driver, the gunman?
I'm definitely the driver. I couldn't be the lookout because I get distracted too easily with my ADHD, but if you put me in having a very simple utility for it, such as driving, I think I can be a very reliable person.
I think I like that. I like your reliability. I think I would definitely be the lookout because I'm a very nervous person. I feel like if I was the one holding people up, I would probably crash the whole gig.
So what you're saying is I have to be the person with the gun.
Yeah, I think you have to be the person with the gun.
Okay. Well, we are saying arm the dolls, so I guess I'll do it so that people's T-shirts become true.
Yeah, and welcome to Dove Weather, the Trans Joy podcast with Chamoy and the Chicano podcast that saw the TV glow. I am your letter A Dove, AP.
And I'm your letter M Dove, Marcy.
Today we have a third mic.
That's right.
This third mic is coming in hot with bylines in hypoallergenic, the Criterion Collection, and all over the internet we have the number one trans writer of the
Wow.
moment.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have
wow.
Caden Mark Gardner, trans film critic, co-author of Corpses, Fools, and Monsters: The History and Future of Trans-assin Cinema, and I would say,
Thank you.
co trans writer with Willow. We can put them both at top on top.
I'd like to big up my guests, but welcome to Dove Weather, Caden. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me on, and thank you for those appraisals that I kind of deserve, but I'm trying to be humble.
Uh
You 100% deserve it. Let me not be humble for you. You deserve that. You deserve that and $10,000.
Oh, I definitely could use $10,000 right now.
Make it $100,000. Make it $1 million. Well,
$1 million.
huh.
we brought you on the mic to talk about a movie.
Yeah, a movie that you two write about in your book, which just celebrated its 1 year anniversary. And the movie is By Hook or By Crook. Came out in
Mhm.
2001, directed by Harry Dodge and Silas Howard. Um,
She's making fun of me. I didn't know how to pronounce Silas.
yeah, you got it right.
Silas, you got it. You got it. You got it.
Yeah, we're talking about a Trans Masc hangout film about companionship, crime, sex, absent parents, and found families. So, Caden, tell us your overall thoughts on this movie and what your history is with it.
So I definitely have to start with the history first, sort of the fact that Willow and I planned our book as this sort of first as a sort of long series of sort of conversations that we would write back and forth to each other on Google Docs, which became known as the Body Talk series. And at first, we were basically approaching it from sort of the more canonized, for lack of a better word, works like Paris is Burning, but also our first one was notably Silence of the Lambs, and sort of tropes and also just type of thematic themes that we were sort of seeing, not even in consciously trans narratives, but things that could hold a metaphor, such as David Cronenberg body horror, for example. But when we did Boys Don't Cry, I kind of, in rewatching it and also looking at the real life story of it, I became very frustrated. Not just with the fact that I think we go even deeper in the book of why we have such animus towards that movie and negative feelings about that movie, but also the fact was that there in the grand scheme of things, even though this becomes a sort of issue of minority groups fighting for basically breadcrumbs, there's been far more trans feminine representations on film than trans masculine, and for whatever reason, Boys Don't Cry still is the most high profile trans masculine narrative film out there. And it's going to be very difficult to outdo because it won an Academy Award. It was nominated for many awards. Uh, so when dealing with that, I was just like, let's also talk about a little bit about By Hook or By Crook and dive into that. Not realizing at the time, in the research of that, that both Silas Howard and Harry Dodge both tried out for the role of Brandon Tina for Boys Don't Cry. And notably, the director preferred the Butch Hillary Swank
Mm,
to over people who had been who in Harry Dodge's case had appeared in a John Waters film, Cecily Demented, and had been working solidly, was in the art scene in San Francisco. Silas Howard was actually a member of the queercore punk band Tribe 8 and was also a major San Francisco figure. And uh, both of them are actually photographed in Chloe Sherman's uh, series of photos in San Francisco, queer life in the 90s that you can look up, and they're really quite striking. Even before, I would say now they are a lot more masculine, and I'm assuming that is because they are further along in transition and aging. But even back then in the 90s, again, they were sort of, uh, even before I believe both were officially out as trans men, that they were sort of in this sort of blurred area. And what's fascinating about By Hook or By Crook was at the time, I would say um, they were part initially of the lesbian community,
mm,
both Dodge and Howard. But I would say perhaps during the making of the process, they were kind of moving towards something else, which kind of became ironic when the movie just started popping up in lesbian film festivals, for
yeah.
example. But I think regardless of how you see this as just a general queer film, butch film, trans masculine film, it still works as what it is. You are talking about these two outsiders and in a sort of classic buddy film with queer migration and sort of becoming, sort of connecting on a sort of subliminal level initially by chance, but become these literal partners in crime. That's very appealing. And still, I think it sort of shows that this movie has sort of grown in reputation as a queer Pride Month sort of film staple
Yeah,
in the last
definitely.
few years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think about how I'm coming from the trans femme lesbian experience, and a lot of my friends, when we're watching movies, we like create these headcanons of like, oh, this like male character is actually a lesbian, so it kind of makes sense that there would be this conflation between like lesbian and trans masc when this came out, especially as you write about in the book, like the gender of these characters is kind of left ambiguous. There's one scene where a child asks the main character Shy, like, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And Shy kind of gives like, an answer that can be interpreted in multiple ways of like both. So yeah, it is interesting, especially seeing that a lot of what was written at the time about this movie is like, oh yeah, it's these two lesbians, but then the way that you contextualize it in the book as Trans Masc cinema, I really like that, and I found when I watched it, I was like, yeah, this is a Trans Masc movie.
So yeah, and the 90s at the time you had the sort of rise of DIY zine culture, third wave feminism. Um, you also had Riot Girl movement. So you had these sort of constellation of things that were happening that kind of that you can kind of see as the sort of undertones tones popping up in sort of the punk spirit of the movie. And
And there's also like
uh,
an increase in technology, right? Accessibility to technology. One of the things that both Silas and Harry mention in a couple of interviews is being inspired by, well, Clerks
yeah,
and Kevin Smith, as he released in the mid 90s Clerks, and he was able to do that on a very small budget with black and white film because it was cheaper. And that's kind of the use of the mini DV in this movie. And so, like, there is this kind of like sprouting of both technologically accessible items and it being cheap, and also just this punk aesthetic that's all over this movie.
yeah, and the 90s itself also had sort of filmmakers like not transmasculine but Vaginal Davis that intersects queer performance artists, basically did a lot of movies by tape. There was a lot of sort of queer core sort of tapes happening to sort of show alternatives. The One of the co-founders of what would be the San Francisco Transgender Film Festival, but called Tranny Fest at the time, Christopher Lee, famously made films on video of adult films with an all trans cast. And that again, San Francisco as sort of the pulse of this film cannot be understated or ignored. It's Even though it can generally be placed anywhere in time. The fact that these two individuals, Howard and Dodge, met in San Francisco is obviously why this film exists in the first place.
Let me ask you something. So
Yeah.
wait, let me first say this. You have this ability to like take this information and put it so concisely and deliver it so purposely and linearly. Like just hearing you speak, like your articles in the book, they all have this level of like preciseness that I
Thank you.
really enjoy reading. And so I want to ask you about something that's a little less precise. Let me ask, if I might dare, what are your feelings? What are your overall feelings about this movie?
So I like it a lot. Like to me, like again, I like hangout movies. I don't have to have films that are married to the plot, feel overdetermined, whether it's due to the Hollywood studio system or Sundance Film Festival Lab or whatever.
Hmm.
So I like the film sort of showing the idea of sort of a trans brotherhood sort of being formed through sort of mutual understanding and mutual yearning find find and search for what they are, which in both of their cases do involve parents, but also involve kind of having a future beyond sort of having the sort of common realization of a coming out film or, a transition narrative. It's not really about that. They kind of purposely, at the time when they were making this, did want to be purposely vague. I think that was also because they were both trying to figure stuff out without having to be labeled.
Yeah.
Little did they know that it would all be about labels for the next 20 years, but I think it's to the film. I think it's to the film's credit that because there is this sort of ambiguity and variance that allows for people to have a sort of a very successful entry point with the characters, even the characters, because the sort of idea of sort of outsiders is still can be a universal story for many people.
And I like that. One of the things that I enjoy about this is it does feel universal. I'm all about trans people getting the money to make cool ass movies, right? And so, like, seeing this, I really like connected with so many different things. One of them being Brotherhood, of course, but and I'll get into this in a little bit. But like, there's also kind of this kind of kinship that I feel with the character Val, and and some of the thoughts that I have around that. But I there is this level of ambiguity where you can both apply your thoughts and almost like a trick mirror reflect that in a meaningful way. Well, I mean, what about you, Marcy? What
Yeah,
was overall? How
I
did you
really
feel?
like this movie. I think I think it's fun to like watch a trans film from 2001 and see a lot of kind of images that we've seen like reflected through multiple layers of irony, like in our current age.
You mentioned this to me,
Yeah.
which was honestly so refreshing to hear.
Uh-huh.
Also,
Yeah, because I think because it's such a DIY movie, because it's really a hangout film, it feels very natural. And then I feel like with a lot of like more contemporary queer and trans films, we're kind of seeing, like their version of a certain scene.
hmm
But yeah, it didn't feel like, I mean, we do mention like in the book that like it has connections to movies like Easy Rider. I feel like it still had the specificity of you're just watching these two guys hang out with each other and do crimes. And yeah, I really like that.
just guy activity.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that we all like it. I think there's things that could be said, and I think everyone that has seen this probably thinks this, is that it's the resolution is like a little difficult in the year 2025. And then the audio is also a little difficult to hear. But honestly, I wanted to get those thoughts out of here because I want to know what people think about the characters. I want to talk about Shy.
Hmm.
What do you think about Shy?
I the thing is, I actually do. The thing was, Caden trans year 1 through 2.5 looked exactly like Shy.
Mm.
I didn't commit any crimes. I mean, I wouldn't say out loud on a podcast anything that could potentially incriminate myself, especially if we're in the statute of limitations or anything like that, or not outside of the statute of limitations. Why would I do that? Anyway, uh, the Canadian tuxedo of a lot of denim, a lot of denim. Uh, And the haircut again, sort of, it's butch, like lesbians can wear it too, famously. But he's this sort of sweet guy, and he's kind of basically he basically is the sort of anchor and sort of equilibrium. He has to kind of be the he kind of has to be the less sort of outgoing, outwardly less volatile character when compared to Valentine.
And he's not, but he doesn't fall into like a Danny Ocean type. Like this kind of like aloof, far from the common criminal that has all these schemes cooking up in the brain, which I like that about Shy. It feels like Shy is this kind of work-a-day criminal, this kind of criminal that you might pass on the streets and be like, hey, the everyday criminal. And I like that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite lines from Shy is like when he's in the bathroom and he's talking to Isabel and basically kind of flirting with her, and he says when she says, "Oh, that's what my ex said," she says, "Don't shoot all dogs just because one of them has fleas," which like I feel like was like a classic line where like this is a guy who is kind of self-aware and like he's got game, and I think like even though yeah, I definitely agree with you, Caden, that like Val's a much more like colorful character, but I feel like Shy like has enough about him that feels like very unique where he's not just like the straight
He's
man.
not a he's not a cipher.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
definitely.
trying to consciously avoid the term straight
Yeah,
man.
I know. Like when I said it, I was like rolling my eyes internally. Yeah, the only straight men in this movie are the police, unfortunately.
True. True. I also like that Chai is there's an honesty to him. There's a humility to him. Even in the times where maybe in a more modern movie that's more focused on taking this experience of like the baby's first crime spree to be more violent or more gratuitous. Like through all of this, Shai is just this sweet person. Even when like he's mugging a gas station, the gas station attendant's just like, "What the fuck are you doing, man? Like, well, bro, what are you doing here?"
Yeah, I love that scene where he has like the gun concealed, and the way she's looking at him, she's like, "You don't look like someone who's gonna shoot me." And like, there's a moment where like she just hits him, and he's like, "Okay, this is over," and then he just leaves.
And I think in addition to Easy Rider, we also made comparisons to Midnight Cowboy. I
Hmm.
think Midnight Cowboy actually came up in a lot of the earlier reviews. Although I would say in many ways that Harry Dodge's Val embodies both the Dustin Hoffman and John Voight characters of that movie,
Mm,
more so than being a one-to-one and one-to-one comparison of Joe Buck and Ratso Rizzo to these two.
true, true. I get that. I get that. Because there's a more complexity. There's a type of complexity here that isn't. Yeah, that is not a one-to-one. There is no carbon copy of this exact relationship between Shy and Val that I can think of that hits on that one-to-one archetypal overlaying of images. In this case, more of the trans masculine side of things. I also want to mention maybe I think about this too much, but like also the fashion in this and Shy's looks, I really like how they hit on like the suit as a motif for him, and also the Canadian tuxedo. This and yeah, the hair. I just want to mention the hair does look great. I love this hair. Every once in a while, when the camera was so focused on the faces of these two actors, like Shy's hair was like spinning into frame just so slightly, just so gelled perfectly to look like a ramp into there, and I loved it.
You wanted to ride on that ramp.
I wanted that hair.
Well, it's hard to talk about Shy for too long without talking about Val. And Val definitely, I know you got a lot to say about Val. I think what I liked about Val, part of it is like because I'm neurodivergent. I like seeing characters who kind of are just like so specifically themselves, and like Val is someone who would just be like talking to himself, and then like Shy would just come in and like be able to calm Val down, and that was like one of my favorite things about their relationship, where they both reacted things very differently, but together like it really showed like the soft masculinity of like they're able to like really be what each other needs at any moment. But Caden, what are your thoughts on Val?
Yeah, to me, it's obviously a performance that does require a lot being having a lot bigger, brasher personality and making a lot bolder choices. And I think it's a shame that Harry Dodge has not really acted in a lot of stuff since. Like he's mostly done art installations and experimental films, but I actually think this is a really great performance by him that as you said, it's basically being a very original sort of singular character that might be touching on a character's certain pathology, but in no way marks the character as being predestined of being doomed, for example. Like I go back to Boys Don't Cry, and I think when you look at Hillary Swank's Brandentina, like you don't even have to like fast forward to the end to know that this character is doomed in some way. It just feels so predetermined from the outset in the jittery, sort of uneasy way that character is played. Now, there is an uneasiness to Val at certain points, but there is also just a general energy about him that also makes him a very sort of attractive character to follow around. And I think I think the sort of unpredictability Dodge brings to the performance is one of the film's great qualities.
Yeah.
I agree. And the film like follows that up not just like through the text, also through the technique. One of them being once we're seeing Val's POV, there's the shaky cam. This happens much more on the second half of the movie, and I like that. It does show this sense of unease within him. We love a neurodivergent king. Val has this sensibility about him. Yeah, he has this internal struggle. I think a lot of people that have dealt with mental health stuff can see that. I will go further and say that there is something about Valentine that I like, and it's this kind of sense that like he's kind of fucking with you. He's like smart in this way that he knows that you know that we don't really know that you don't really know if he is or isn't fucking with you. And I like that. I like that for many reasons. One, because I have met that type of dude many times in my life. And the other part is because I am that type of dude. And in that, and throughout all of this, and yeah, there's moments where like Val is in a dark emotional state, and I'm thinking about this like time where Shy has stolen all the coins and is coming back into the house, and Val is kind of saying, Billie's gone. Oh, do you know where Billie is? And there's this nice emotional scene that goes on. And then after sitting down and sharing emotions with each other, Shy asks, do you know where Billie might have gone to Val? And Val responds with a smirk and says, she's doing the wash. And I love that. I love that so much. It is this complexity that comes with the understanding that he might have some fireworks up in the cranium, just like many of us do. But also, he's like charismatic. He's sly. He's fun, and everyone around him understands that and doesn't see him as needing to like be medicated in this way that will push him into a form that isn't himself. At no point does this movie think Val needs to be fixed, and in fact gives Val enough space to be all of this what I've mentioned and then more. And it hit me kind of personally, because as I was watching this, I was like, hey, yo, is Valentine, is he Latino? Is he Latino in this? And I kind of watched some of the scenes again, and actually I went to confirm with some other Latinos about whether or not Val kind of holds this Latino essence. And their conclusion was that not really. But every person I asked this said no, but there is a similarity, there is a kinship between Val and me. And because being mischievous and being this kind of like sly smirk and a wink giver is so essential to my Latino-ness that I just projected it wholesale onto Val.
Amazing.
You see, this movie is universal.
Exactly. Yeah, you found some universality from it, and you're like, oh, this character is Latino. But in reality, no, the character was just you. You saw, this movie is not just for trans people. Anyone can find something in it. And I think to what you're talking about, the scene where they go to like the hardware place, and they're like they're like, okay, well, actually the scene that we kind of did a riff on in the cold open, where they're like, okay, we're returning this, and then when the guy who's working there asks for the receipt, they kind of go through a whole song and dance of like, oh yeah, it's in his pockets, and they take out literally everything from his pockets, and you can tell that it's just the workers is like, I don't want to deal with all this, and then afterwards, Shy tells Val like, you did a good job in there. I think I like the way that they kind of like use the Val's like strangeness as kind of like a weapon to get what they want, and there's like an element of Shy like understands like what's going on with Val, but also understands that like it's not like Val is helpless. Val is like an equal partner with the crimes.
Val is bringing a skill set.
Yeah.
You call it a weapon, but what it is actually a very disarming sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
Val can disarm this like clerk because Val is just kind of playing this caricature of like a dazed and confused type guy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
The relationship between Val and Shy is obviously the key of the movie, and the directors and the main actors, same people. So like it makes sense that like it's so personally about them, and I think that personal touch is really exemplified in the scenes where like Shy is rubbing Val's shoulders, and you kind of just see that softness between them, where Shy's able to like calm Val down, and it makes me think about how like both of these are like men who are like having sex with women, but at the same time, like there's this comfortability with like male intimacy between them that I really liked.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think there is this sort of push to, in addition to trans narratives, to also have celebrate and elevate T for T
Mm-hmm.
stories. But sometimes it's like, let's just do the buddy. For me
Yeah.
personally, I have a preference of let's just do the buddy movie. Those are funner because they can still be intimate and have this closeness and sort of trust. Whereas I'm like, I don't need to see a trans fuckboy on
Mm.
screen.
I think being the being the token cis person in the podcast, I
Wow.
I see this kind of like friendship in between these two as actually a closer form of masculinity that I try to like perform, try to like
Hmm.
stimulate.
Hmm.
And just literally last co-op episode, I talked about how I want more men to like hold hands with their boys and tell them that you love them. And I mean, like Val and Shy don't say "I love you" to each other in this movie, but like they perform it.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, before we get too into the bros of it all, I do want to give a shout out to my girl Billie, played by Stanya Khan, and she's also a co-writer of the movie.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed her scenes with the other two and her scenes
Hmm.
with just Val. And I really like the sense of community that the three were able to create together.
I do apologize for not having given her enough sort of space in the book as a contributor and performer. But there's always usually in these types of buddy films somebody who's not within the sort of gravitational pull of the two main main principles. But when she inserts herself or gets involved, she is this sort of perfect fit, and I think it's what she is in the movie.
Yeah, and I think I first of all, no worries about the not writing more about her in the book. I think it allowed me to kind of have the discovery when I watched it, which I liked.
I like Billy for a handful of reasons. She's never this like motherly character. She's never like at no. I don't think at any point does she fit into the like mother whore crone style archetype. She is just this like third, just the person. You know, the third gun in
Yeah.
this group.
Yeah, I think it's fun to like see them do crimes together. Like there's like the scene where they have the water guns and they're trying to like they're trying to jack the vending machine. And it's just really fun to like watch them all together. And then later in the movie, when Shy and Val are arrested, and Shy is eventually let go, and then uh, like Val is still in there and is eventually taken to the what they call the loony bin in the movie. Uh, like Billie gets like angry with Shy, where she's like, "You don't understand," because like Shy's like, "Oh, everything's gonna be okay," and Billie says, he has priors. Like she has like this. You can tell that like she's had to kind of suffer consequences when bad things happen to Val, where like she's kind of left
Mhm.
alone. And I like seeing kind of like that contrast where Shy and Billie are still able to kind of be there for each other when Val is taken from them, but at the same time, like Shy's masculinity and one thing AP and I talked about is like they don't specifically say pronouns, but I'm just gonna say Shy's masculinity and Billie's femininity. They kind of process the traumas in different ways, and I like seeing that in this movie.
Mm.
I kind of think of like what happens often in Safdie brothers movies. There's always one person who, if the main character fucks up, they have so much more to lose than than that one person.
Hmm.
And it always happens in a lot of crime movies, even just petty crimes, petty larceny. It it's like such a sort of strong sort of theme of these types of movies, but sometimes you just don't absorb it all because like either the character doesn't work or something else. But uh, the character Billie, you definitely feel that, in my opinion.
I love the hair that she has in all that like post arrest scenes because it is so luscious. I love it.
Yeah, they're definitely like between her and Isabel. Like there's some really great hair even beyond our two Trans Masc icons.
I also like that Billie like kind of compliments Val in this kind of quirked up way. We don't know whose idea was to have macaroni and cheese with sprinkles, but I think that's a Billie move.
Yeah, I like when they're like, "What kind of cheese is this?" Macaroni cheese, the same as always.
Also, the addition of like tab and tequila, honestly, atrocious mix, criminal
Yeah.
mix. But
We're kind
Sometimes I forget that Tab actually existed in the world.
Yeah, we're starting to touch on one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which is the scene where Shy and Val have the two like little shark heads on the sticks, and they're like playing with the toys where the sharks are like talking when they talk, and they use the sharks to talk to each other and also to talk to the bartender. I think that just showed like the casual like comedy of the movie, of like how like they kind of relate to each other as like children. Like it was it was very much like their inner child's jumping out and them just doing like what they wanted to do in that moment. And yeah, I think that was that's kind of like a good transition point for talking about their brotherhood.
what did you think of the Brotherhood angle here, Caden?
I mean, again, it's often such this sort of huge moment. I think now in the last 10 years, this type of sort of connection in trans movies can get a little admittedly corny in its earnestness of finding community, finding a like-minded person who has walked a mile in my shoes and all that. But it's to this, it just feels natural because it their initial sort of run-in was so spur of the moment and sort of tied to helping one another to save someone from an act of violence, that it's it's great. Like again, uh trans buddy movies for the win.
You know, Caden, you mentioned the universality to this. Like there is this like sense of
Mhm.
universality of experience here. And I agree. As I was watching this, yeah, I could think about my own like literal like brothers, right? Or the people that I've come to describe as brothers too. I think I do want to hit an angle here that to just show how universal this is. This sense of what brotherhood is, which is like a lot of things, right? It's a game of chicken. It's like jousting each other into doing the worst possible mistakes. It's kind of being there to the hilt. It's all these things and more, and all of them are like presented in By Hook or By Crook,
Mhm.
and it does it so well that it becomes this universal concept that when I apply what I said about what brotherhood might be onto something else, I think it fits. And that thing that I want to like bring in is the Mexican rappers Peso Pluma and Tito Doble P. I don't assume that both of y'all listen to Spanish language rap, but these two are like flesh and blood cousins. and they've been like helping each other like develop as musicians from the very beginning. And they have all these songs, like Galibandos or Dos Días. And the one that I think about the most is Los Cuadros, which translates to the frames. That is all about this kind of like reminiscence of the past and how you're kind of translating romantic themes or high romanticism onto just this relationship that you have in between you and your boy. And I love that. Oh, I love this movie. This is good. I love that brotherhood shit.
Yeah, as a woman, I'm glad that you can have your brotherhood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Marcy allows me to have a lot of things, so I'm glad that I could add that to the list.
Yeah. they have like such natural chemistry, and I think that like that really lends to the scenes where you're not just seeing like two actors portray brothers, but they're so in concert despite having such different characteristics. And the moment where at the end of the movie where Shy saves Val from the quote loony bin, it's like such a great moment. Like you can tell just how much Shy cares about Val, and also with the whole going through the phone book, helping to find Val's birth mother. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to listen to. You mentioned Peso Pluma before, so that's on my radar. The other artist
I mentioned Galibandos as well.
So I'll have to listen to both of those so that
It's good.
I can really get into the brotherhood vibe. Sisters can be brothers too.
Sisters can transition into brothers and vice versa.
Definitely.
I do like how, Shy boosts Val out of the mental hospital, and I just love how like casual it is. And there's kind of like almost no prompting, maybe not even any real planning either. It's just kind of like, I have to do this, so I'm gonna go do this. And I do want to like pose a question to you, because like we're at a point in this movie where we've seen the worst things that happen to these characters. So I want to know, like, do you see I see this movie as bouncing from sweet to bittersweet and never really pouncing into the grotesque. And I just want to know how y'all feel about that.
I feel like for its time, while there wasn't this sort of inherent notion of wanting to make movies that radiate trans joy, so you have to make sure that you avoid the grotesque. I think they wanted to still they wrote this movie, they directed this movie, they acted in this movie. I don't see these two uh two artists necessarily wanting to live in the grotesque as these characters per se. So it didn't surprise me in that case, if that makes sense. Now there are artists and writer directors, especially in the sort of next phase of the sort of mumblecore movement that happened after, who absolutely do habit and inhibit the grotesque by design, but it made sense for Dodge and Howard to not go that route, especially when you know what they've made afterwards as well.
Yeah, I think it contrasts with some of the other like trans cinema that we've watched. Like for instance, we watched the TV show Veneno a few episodes ago, and that has like a graphic like prison sexual assault scene. And watching that, I was just like, I don't want to be watching this right now. And I think like this movie contrasts to that, where you do see violence enacted on Val in jail, but yeah, it doesn't feel like you're like it's you're being like you have to watch this in order to understand like how bad it is. I think it still kind of like feels a piece with the rest of the movie, of this hangout movie, and I think like definitely there is a place for cinema that's just showing you like this is the worst thing that can happen, but I don't think it's incumbent on all trans, all queer filmmakers to like always uh like show that, because that's like a burden that shouldn't be placed on us. And so yeah, I think I really liked kind of the way it was able to still show that like the police and the society at large like puts trans and queer people in these places, but yeah, it wasn't grotesque, as you two both say.
Yeah, and again, just to go back to the whole boys don't cry angle, I think Brandon Tina sort of took up a lot of oxygen in transmasculine circles throughout the 90s. So, and obviously, again, as I stated, Dodge and Howard both tried out for that role. And that's the type of movie that gets produced by a very high profile indie studio and gets lauded for these awards. And it ends with a trans character dead. Whereas in this movie, these characters are able to be who they are, but aren't sort of martyred
Yeah.
for being who they are, or trying to search for and discover who they are.
Yeah, I love the way the movie ends with this freeze frame where the three main characters are about to meet Val's mom, and you don't get to actually see them meet her, but they're in this place where they've just broken Val out of this prison, and they're together, and you know that no matter what's going to happen, like they're going to be okay. And yeah, I like what you're saying about, because Veneno did end in a trans character dying. You know, Emilia
I
Perez
mean,
ends in a trans character
I
dying.
mean, and I'll give that show credit. It also led to people looking at trans communities in Spain and actually helped resurrect that documentary that's talked about in within that show, Dressed in Blue. And I mean, it is very complicated, and you have to sort of walk a thin line when we're trying to retell a story. You see that when you're trying to talk about Marsha P. Johnson's story, or even the most recent Venus Extravaganza documentary. It's like there is so much brutality in these histories, but how can you not so much finesse it, but how can you tell it truthfully, but at the same time not brutalize or re-traumatize people who are directly impacted by this in a
Yeah,
way.
And I really enjoy how By Hook or By Crook is so it presents the difficulties without being grotesque, and that's also presented textually, right? When you look at the arrest scene or the interrogation scenes, you can tell that like the police, they don't have any equipment. They don't have a gun. They don't have a pepper spray. They don't have a baton. They don't have anything. Of course, that's enough. Their presence is enough to be a danger. And the movie uses that image to present that. And I like that. I like that a lot, especially in 2025, where seemingly so many characters are just cops and everything. And this is also probably done due to the budget constraints.
Yeah.
Something I really enjoy about this movie is the budget constraints and the economy that is developed out of that. when you look at all of this movie, there are specific items and aspects that are brought up time and time and time again. The suitcase being one of them, the shy shoes being one of them. And so many people mention how good they are. Val also, this thing also goes so far in this economy that one of the aspects of this movie, Val's search for his mother, is strengthened with this economy of items with the phone books. The phone books are this item that pops up multiple times in the movie. We see Val rip one out from a phone book. And we see him take it to his house. We see him interact with so many of them throughout this. And eventually it comes back to be the solution that Shy finds to find Val's mother. And it's just so beautiful, born out of economic constraints and smart thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to underscore just how low budget this was. Like, again, this predated the sort of internet GoFundMe type of campaigns. They literally were at their places of work and going around San Francisco queer bars for donations to fund this film. And it took a number of years for them to just be able to get the budget that they ultimately landed on, which was still pretty low budget. So it was a true DIY type of movie and enterprise.
Yeah. So my last question before we get into Hopecasts is, so you wrote in the book, it deserves to be hailed in the same space as other canonized new queer cinema movies. So what needs to happen in order for it to be enshrined in that canon? Do we need a Criterion release? You know, there's been some talks about a remastering of this film. What
The
do you think?
the remaster exists,
Okay.
like, or at least the efforts have been made. I don't know what the sort of updates are in that specifically, but they've been approached for
Hmm.
that. And I think I I don't want to talk out of turn, but it might be tied to the Sundance Institute because that is where it had one of its premieres when it was going around. But I think I think its canonization and sort of again its reputation has grown substantially over the years. Again, I think it has become, for lack of a better word, the default choice for transmasculine
Mm.
narratives when trying to do a pride programming. So I think it's always going to kind of be in that spot until, unfortunately or fortunately, another transmasculine film takes over the culture, which I I can't I can't predict that. I can't give a forecast on that if that's ever going to happen. But I think its reputation has definitely grown. I do believe there is going to be a physical release. I don't think it's Criterion, but I think it just having a physical release and being available in libraries or anywhere is still would be a huge for this film.
Yeah, definitely. Well, our prayers are up, and hopefully, all those things will come to pass soon. Um, well, we like to end this podcast with something called Hopecast, where we share one thing that is giving us hope in the world. So I can start. The thing that's giving me hope is my new tattoo. So this is my second tattoo. It's a rose, and I got it yesterday. And I think just giving me hope is the fact that I'm able to like just change things on my body. You know, I think
Mhm.
like we talk a lot in trans spaces about how like you don't have to do X, Y, or Z to be trans. You're just trans
Yeah.
if you're trans. But I think it's also freeing to like have that freedom um, to change yourself. And of course, tattoos. Anyone can get a tattoo. You don't have to be trans, but it does make us look sexier. So yeah, I think that's what's giving me hope right now.
What's giving me hope is that there are still sort of boutique film uh, home video companies that are still actively putting out stuff and putting out stuff that is not widely available. I don't have any on top of mind, but I know, for example, like a lot of upcoming Paul Morrissey directed films. He famously did a lot of the movies that were produced by Andy Warhol that are always credited to Warhol, but Paul Morrissey did these movies, but he did a lot of the movies with Candy Darling and Hollywood on that are prepared to be coming out. And I think that's great. They recently announced a release of The Woman Chaser, which to me is basically if you adapted a Charles Willeford crime novel, but also did a riff on it like Peyton Reed did with Down with Love. It's in that sort of key of parody, parodying the sort of thing for the time. It has Patrick Warburton in the lead role, and he kind of looks like Don Draper in many ways in this movie, which also kind of throws you. But I'm so happy. It's by Robinson DeVore, who himself has had a very wild film career, and it's been announced to be on Blu-ray. And again, I like that physical media companies are taking big swings at stuff rather than say, I don't know, putting out something by Ari Aster or something like that.
Yeah. If you wanna if you wanna kick on Ari Aster, you can listen to the previous episode on Eddington and how much I kind of didn't like it. But
I still haven't seen it.
I mean, you know what? It's just a movie. Watch it if you want to. But you know, don't hoof it. You don't gotta put a giddy on your step. I would say what's bringing me hope is some of my crops have fruited, and I have harvested tomatillos and tomatoes and
Awesome. It's about to be that season of nothing but tomatoes.
oh yeah, I'm gonna eat so much salsa verde y roja. Oh my god! And corn. I have harvested my first plot of corn, and I am so excited. I did a little bit of a
It's
photo
so Midwestern, so Midwestern.
It's so Midwestern and so Mesoamerican. What can I say? It's in my blood. And if you want to see some of that, you can go to our Instagram where I have placed a photo shoot that I did with my corn. So with that, Caden, I want to thank you for being on Dove Weather.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you on.
Yeah, and shout out to my dog, who I feel like it has given herself a cameo and is going to try and is gunning for some SAG after card because oh my God, she is barking.
What's your dog's name?
Oreo.
Oreo, I promise you, is bringing in Nomi energy, which is the regular third mic, which is Marcy's cat.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being here. I have
Thank you, man.
linked Caden's socials on the description, and also a place to put to buy the book is the first thing you'll see on the description. So please go buy this book. It's a good book.
Thank you.
Yeah, I already mentioned Instagram, but you can find us on.
Dove Weather.
You can find.
Well, you know, it's like they might go to the Instagram and be like, wait, but what's their handle? Their handle is Dove Weather. But yeah, you can also find us on Bluesky.
And on YouTube.
Yeah.
And on TikTok, question mark, triple question mark. All under Dove Weather.
Yep. All podcasting platforms, wherever you listen, you can find us. You can rate us. You can review us. Thanks.